Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost inching towards the climactic part of today's program as well. That's a day two here at the Eastern Himalayan Naturenomics Forum 2018. However, ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed with the next segment of talks as by Cleanopolis by Prokash Datta, CEO of Cleanopolis Energy Systems India Private Limited, that is CES IPL, founded with a vision to explore the synergy between waste of energy and empowerment, and Mr. Richard Leitch, who is closely affiliated with the Balipura Foundation and its social initiative Wild Mushare. So ladies and gentlemen, please give it a big round of applause and welcome Mr. Prakash Datta and Mr. Richard Leitch.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking the Foundation for giving us this opportunity, and so we'll keep it brief. So I'm going to go completely off subject. And I'm going to talk about time, because clearly we're not good at keeping it. Time is pretty well infinite in our time scale. The numbers have been bandied about: crores, billions, trillions. To put this in perspective, I was more for the younger generation, a billion seconds is 31 years, 4 months and 10 days, give or take. That's 1 billion. And we bandy trillions. So that puts it into perspective. So, enough on time. I'm going to discuss or introduce someone who's not here. He couldn't make it, Professor Burrower of Tezpur University, who's head of the energy department now. He apologizes, he can't be here. It's a great shame. He's hosting another conference in Upper Assam. So we've been working very closely with the Energy Department at Tezpur University, working with the postgraduates, and they've initiated these mini biodigesters, which we can take to housing, 1 or 2 houses to village level and up and beyond. Now, deforestation is an issue, and it's been mentioned over the last 2 days that a lot of it is people are going in, cutting the wood out of the forest. Well, they don't need to do that with these micro biodigesters, but the bio-waste they generate. They have cows, they have chickens, they have pigs, whatever, plus their own waste, can be put into these and supply enough gas for them to cook, and even give them some lighting. So then we move on to what we're trying to achieve at Cleanopolis. This is a prototype. We're going to show you a very short video, and then Prakash will take over and go into further detail. But we're beginning now, and hopefully we can take this forward. We're working with tea plantation, working with local communities, and we hope to build this into a modular system which can be designed on the availability of biodegradable components to generate the methane and the power, and take it up to town level. So we start with using the manure as the base slurry. We can clean water hyacinth out all the waterways so they can get back into fisheries. That's really good biodegradable stuff. And then we can also go to human waste. And there's massive sewage issues in India, and we can incorporate this around towns. So without further ado, I think I've said enough. Can you please play this short video?
started this company in 2009
sound.
with an idea to promote zero waste enterprise. Cleanopolis is all about renewable energy. It's all about conserving the environment. It's all about a clean country.
We have an issue with software apparently, so you can't hear a thing we're saying, which is a real shame. But this is the prototype, which we're starting up. We're working with the government initiative now is to try and go from LPG canisters around India and use methane, which will then reduce the imports of hydrocarbons from the Middle East, which at the present time, due to the rupee devaluation and the price of oil increasing, is a huge burden on the economy of India. So if we can take this forward and work with communities all over India, people that have dairy farms, etc., we should be able to reduce the imports of hydrocarbons in India by about 20 to 25%. And that's a huge sum of money at the present time. Apologies for the lack of sound. I don't know what's happened. I listened to it this morning. It sounded fine. So this is us taking in water hyacinths and other biodegradables. We mix it with the cow manure, which is the base slurry, and then we ferment it in these biogas digesters. We dehumidify the gas and we generate electricity. Then the byproduct of this whole thing is fertilizer, which we can put back into the fields wherever. And Prokash will give you the presentation right after this.
Inlet valves for
Such a shame you can't hear what we're saying.
two on each side. So the idea is that we rotate one valve every alternate day, while the third valve acts as a standby recirculator. And what we have achieved so far is that we convert the waste to a solid and liquid fertilizer. Then we extract gas from the anaerobic digesters. And
These are Deutzer engines, probably some of the best you can get, that convert it to work on methane. Once again, apologies for the lack of sound. It must be a software issue or something. I'd like to invite Majid, are you here? Please come up. Just put the presentation up. So I'll hand over to Prokash. This is his brainchild. He pioneered this. It's taken 9 years. Hopefully we're getting to fruition here in the next couple of weeks. Majid, please join us.
You've heard a bit about what we are trying to do. I'll try and fill in where the voiceover was lost, and we'll take you through a brief presentation. The idea is to introduce the concept. The concept was that of zero waste enterprise. So with that broad guideline, we thought that there was a business opportunity here because of India's abundance of waste, with its very poor record of waste disposal. So this led us to think about promoting zero waste enterprise. And in doing that, what we did is we started processing farm, agriculture, and animal manures initially through, as Richard pointed out, a biodigester. And what this machine essentially allows us to do is process the waste and convert it into solid and liquid fertilizer as well as gas. At the moment, we've achieved productivity in terms of fertilizer production, and we are probably about 15 days away from starting to export power to the grid. What we are trying to do here is demonstrate the fact that there are business opportunities in waste which will make sense in terms of what people would say is the triple bottom line. So we think there is an opportunity to protect the environment. We think there is an opportunity to start involving more and more stakeholders, and we think it can make economic sense. Now, I'll just digress a bit. So, to be able to get the triple bottom line in place, we were thinking about how to promote the responsible disposal of waste. And in that we realized that if you started off with a waste product and you converted it, in our case, to say fertilizer, then we started converting it to manure, gas, which we treat a little bit, and then we supplement the grid with power. Now, only 40% of the energy potential of gas is in energy, is in electricity. The balance 40 is in heat. So now what happens is, when the engines start to run, not only are you supplementing power to the grid, but you're also in a position to start recovering the waste heat. So once you start recovering the waste heat, what happens is you can design different applications based on that. These applications in turn run forever without any operating cost. There may be an initial capital cost. So the idea behind this is to start to try and showcase that we have established a proof of concept, if you like, where we are trying to promote microgrids. So the idea would be that instead of a centralized distribution system on which the utility industry works today, so you have your central power utilities, you have your water utilities, you have your gas utilities. What we hope to showcase is that it does make sense today to think about decentralized multi-utility grids. Now these can not only give you power, this can not only help you address your waste disposal concerns, this can provide heating or cooling. Such a system can even start providing water through precipitation instead of piping. So instead of pipe gas, you're using biogas. Instead of electricity from thermals, you are actually focusing on hybrids. And there is a potential, we believe, to compete in this space of infrastructure development by trying to be a multi-utility. So the last step, I think, in our journey would be to try and find an application for the heat. So probably by about April or May of next year, we were hoping to integrate that heat aspect into our business by focusing on what we were thinking in terms of vertical farming. So now we start with the waste, we generate our fertilizer, we use our gas, we generate power. Now we've got a cooling system that's in hand, and we are trying to address the issue of climate-proof agriculture. So what we would like to do then is build vertically, maybe 2 floors as a pilot, encapsulate the entire building so that we can manipulate the light cycle from, say, a 24 hours to a 12 hours, replicate ideal conditions in terms of temperature, in terms of dew, humidity, rainfall, all artificially, and then actually grow the vegetables in a liquid medium, which too can be produced, which we are producing, and then grow the balance of the crop in a compost medium. Now, the moment you do that, what happens is pests can only be soil or airborne. So you become organic by default, you stop using pesticides, and you started off with waste, but you can end up with food. So we believe Cleanopolis is an attempt at trying to showcase how it makes sense to get into the disposal of waste. So anywhere that you see waste, we think there is an opportunity. It does require a bit of investment upfront, but then these are fairly sustainable approaches. Thank you.
One thing we failed to mention, and it's evolved through this last 2 days, is, as you heard General Aaron speaking before, very eloquent man, very diversified in his knowledge. Through him, we're going to be working with the military, and they produce a lot of biodegradable waste. We're going to take that waste, turn it into energy, so by default they will be helping reduce the carbon requirements or the hydrocarbon requirements from the Middle East, and then in turn we can give them back the fertilizer we produce from their waste so they can grow their stuff. As General spoke earlier, each command post has places where they try and do things to help the ecology around them. So that's something that's come out of this last 2 days. Is there any other questions we can answer, or Majid, or?
Or any possibility that if you take up the complete job, then at what rate you would like to supply per unit energy? Like solar guys are giving 3 rupees, 4 rupees, 5 rupees per unit, similarly.
Yes, there is a cost of production. It would be about 3 rupee 50 paisa. Compared to solar, what will happen is that, say, if you had 1 megawatt of power, that equates to about 24,000 units in a day. But in places like Assam, for example, where you would have 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, so despite installing 24,000 units of power, you won't recover more than 6,000 or 8,000 units of power. So solar may be viable in tracts where there are large unagricultural plots. You know, say Rajasthan is good, but where land itself is scarce and hours of sunlight availability is low, solar may not work in Assam. So with biogas, what we are doing is we are selling it back to the grid. Our cost of production, depending on the efficiency of our plant, would range between 3 to 3 rupee 50 paisa a unit. We've been lucky enough to get what the local utility calls preferential tariff. So we've got a rate of almost 6 rupees when we sell our power back to the grid.
This includes your capital investment as well. This includes your financing cost for the capital investment also.
There are two aspects to our production. We would put a weightage of about 40% on power and 60% on fertilizer. So the two combine to meet the capital requirements. So fertilizer similarly is sold at about 7 or 8 rupees a unit. So you would look at about maybe 7-year paybacks.